Yeah, I can do this.
Thanks. Then we just set up a private spot back here, double lock files, so you know that's required by law for confidentiality.
Yeah.
You know, little space back here to decompress if you need to.
Okay.
Sound good? Yeah. And we'll go sit in the other room as soon as the coffee's done. And, you know, just as an aside, so I bought this place and then rehabbed it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so I charged rent for the acupuncture next door and then a small apartment upstairs. So that was part of,
Wow.
it's actually, I wanted it.
Does it almost pay for itself then? Or?
Pretty much.
Pretty much?
Pays
That's
the
good.
mortgage and taxes.
That's
so.
good.
So I've been wanting to do that for like, I've been in the area 15, 16, maybe 20 years. You know, I started originally in Dansville. Church just gives me office space. And then my professor sold me his life's work, which is Alfred Counseling Associates.
Wow.
So I'm trying to find a home to rehab and couldn't find one, shook hands on a couple of deals and they fell through. So I finally saw the local pastor and said, "You got your finger on the pulse of this community. You must know of a house that's for sale." And he said, I'll give you a call in a little bit." Very nondescript. Calls me the next day. He said, "This is the week we decided whether to sell this place or not." And he said we would only sell it to the right place, the right organization, because we didn't want any frats and sororities to come in here. And so I kind of really fell into it, you know, God kind of looking out for me.
Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So we've been here a couple of years now.
Sam, I went to counseling with Sam way back when. I think the last time was like 2008 or something like
Sounds
that.
about right, yeah. High school.
Yeah.
Kind of struggled with some stuff.
Yeah.
Had a lot of
Why do you think I'm going into this profession?
Yeah. How'd I do though? You think he's okay? Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Work in progress, right? Perfection is impossible, but it can get better, right?
You guys comfortable sitting on the couch together?
Yeah.
Securing your hand. This
That is one of the first things I noticed. I'm like, there's like no air ventilation, and then there's this thing. Right
yeah, I roll an air conditioner unit in there and that vents it out.
Nice.
So kind of I did all the construction work with my son, so we rehabbed it a lot.
Wow. Cool.
So multi-talents, I guess, right? And Thor, that's Thor the Fourth. So
Number 4.
Thor used to be joined by Flash, but Flash got flushed, so
Oh, that's sad.
it was sad. Yeah. But I've had different Thors for over 20 years, so they last pretty long. Thor the Third was the shortest, lived one, but 1, 2, and 4 have lived a long time.
That's good.
They seem happy in there.
Did you bring the other questions?
I did,
'Cause
I did.
forgot to bring
Yeah, no.
things. Okay.
I'm glad.
I was hoping.
All right, so you just want to ask questions? You want to hear what I have to say, or what my background is? What do you want to do?
We can
Do
see.
all, everything.
Yeah. I mean, basically, probably if you just want to give us a general background, it will probably hit a lot of these questions.
Okay.
And then we'll go back to the questions, see how much we
Sounds good.
How much we got.
Sounds good. Well, one of the reasons I started working with people is that I kind of had a pretty crazy youth. You know, I was kind of a party animal at age 15 and making all sorts of bad choices. Tried to be a surfer dude in Florida and didn't do well in college. But then I kind of had this discernment to, gee, what I'm doing wasn't necessarily all bad stuff, but how I was going about it were hurting the people closest to me. And so I thought if I could wake up to that kind of change in behavior and that kind of insight, maybe I could help other people, you know, do that. So I changed career paths and majored in criminal justice. Didn't know if I'd be an FBI profiler or, you know, maybe work with the hardest criminals in the world. but all the job opportunities then after I got my associate's and bachelor's degree were with youth and families. So I made like a 40-year career of working with youth and families. So that's where all my background is. So I was a senior child care worker at St. Joseph's Villa, which is an institute in Rochester for emotionally disturbed kids, abandoned, neglected, orphaned kids, really awful stuff. Then I had a 10-year career with Ontario County Probation. So I was their youth specialist, and then I became their senior probation officer. Then came into Steuben County, hooked up with Kinship Family and Youth Services, and I was on their administrative team. Butted heads with the director. I actually got fired from that job because everyone wanted me to be the director except for one person, the director. Yeah, so he found a way to bounce me. And in hindsight, again, you always want to keep maturing and growing. And I could have managed that situation a whole lot better, and I probably would have ended up being the director if I had been smarter about it instead of bullheaded. So I became a contractor for a while, but I was working with youth still in the community, coaching sports, foster care kids, foreign exchange students, the youth leader at the church. But I missed doing this counseling stuff, so I went back to school in the 90s to get my master's degree in counseling so I could do this private practice. And in 96 I graduated from Alfred University and immediately started the private practice at the Foursquare Church in Dansville. And then it's just kind of grown and developed within a 3-4 year period into 3 offices, then 4 offices. Now we just opened up the 5th office in Belmont. And all with the premise, though, bringing quality Christian counseling, to the southern tier. And, I'm not the only solo Christian counselor in the area anymore. There's 4 or 5 associates now, and hopefully we're making an impact on things. So that's kind of my story in a quick nutshell. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good background.
Yeah.
What was your original career path? Because you said you changed.
Yeah, I was going to be an engineer,
Okay.
electrical engineer. So I was studying math and.
Is that how you know the story?
What's that?
Is that how you know the story? The story was going to do engineering originally.
No, I just know him because my daughter went to school at home.
Oh, okay. That's
She worked at the counseling center.
She interned there.
So we got to know, and her work study put her in that office.
I see.
Plus she's a psychology major also, and was a social worker with Hillside for 12 years. So she never went on and got her master's degree, otherwise she'd probably be counseling here too. But yeah, that's how we got to know.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah.
So what is like the nature of your counseling? I guess what he wants is like the hours per week, like the logistical kind of stuff. Do you mostly do individual or group, and how long? How long in practice? You already mentioned.
Yes, I've been in practice for 20 years basically now. Every day I'm in a different town, so my business model in a rural community is to fill up a full day in each town. And so I'll do anywhere from 6 to 9 private sessions every day in a different town. And the only day that's different is on Wednesdays I run sex offender treatment groups for Allegheny County Probation. So I'll start my morning in Belmont and run these 2 groups, and then I'll come here in the evening and do 3 to 4 individual appointments. So Monday I'm here, Tuesday I'm in Wellsville, Wednesday I already mentioned, Thursday I'm in Dansville, and then every other Friday I'm in Wayland.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Congratulations.
Yeah, like a circuit ride.
Yeah, right?
Every day I'm in a different town doing things.
Yeah,
So I'm able to take every other Friday off most of the time.
that's good.
Keep my head on straight. But they're long hours, but if you love what you're doing, it's really not a lot like work, And it's always interesting. I'll be as fresh for my 6 o'clock appointment as I will for my 9 o'clock appointment.
Wow.
You know, just because I love what I'm doing, and just so, you know, passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you've touched on it, but go deeper into your clientele. Like, what do you like consider yourself specializing in?
If I was in a larger community, I'd only see youth with learning disabilities. That they just crack me up. I just have so much fun with them, and
Okay.
whether it's the, you know, the Asperger's or you know whatever social anxieties they might have that make them troubled within their families or school, they're my most fun to work with. So I would do every hour with them if I could, but because you're in a rural community, you got to become a general practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll see multiple women with, you know, depression, anxiety issues, childhood issues. I'll see guys with the same problems or, you know, porn addictions, alcohol addictions. I do a lot of marriage counseling. And I see as many kids from any age, from 6 up, that people will send me. You know, they're still probably the largest percentage of what I see. You know, maybe 30% of my caseload are teens and kids. So I'm kind of known as the person that'll see kids, and not every counselor wants to work with children or teens. Where that's my preference.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So one thing that's interesting with the population of all the women that I counsel, you know, they'll come to me with depression, anxiety, marriage issues, problems with their husband. Almost 100% of them have been sexually abused.
That's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's no coincidence.
Yeah.
So then that's why I said yes to working with sex offenders, is that I could be their voice within that group
Yeah.
and maybe make an impact and a difference on the amount of sex offending that's occurring, at least in Allegheny County.
Yeah.
You know.
So in that way, you kind of just reacted instead of having an initial desire. You reacted to what was given to you.
Yep, looking for solutions to the problem, not just,
Yeah.
you know,
Finding the specific
Finding
problem.
the
that
problem.
you're- Yeah. Wow. So yeah, this is especially Allegheny County. This is a rather impoverished area.
Mm-hmm.
How does that go with your clientele? Like, I don't know. Can you give me details on how?
Well,
you
I'm
finance
fortunate that I've taken lots of insurances, but that's been a building thing over the 20 years. Initially, I just had to charge a little less, and then one of the phrases we use in Alfred Counseling is that I don't want anyone not to have counseling because of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've seen people for very low prices for a lot of years,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you know, you've seen witness to that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And that I just trust that God will fill in the gaps. If I'm here of service for Him, the money will take care of itself.
Yeah.
Anytime I begin to worry about the money and let that become the focus of my business, the business just doesn't run as smoothly. I can almost feel it sticking a little bit, you know, like a gear that doesn't want to shift, you know. But when I'm focused on serving and being here for the right reasons, everything else falls into place.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. It's really a special thing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and harder to live, let me tell you.
Uh-huh.
But it's a special thing to learn.
Yeah.
You know, it applies to really all levels of life, really, no matter what your profession is.
Right.
You know, if you're of service, the other stuff kind of takes care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
I don't want to fill up the room, Sam. So go
Yeah,
ahead. You have questions.
Okay, my questions are, I feel like they'd be better later on,
Okay.
but
That's fine.
Just remember we're recording this, so if you don't sound really intelligent, proof is going to be there, you know.
mine are a lot more specific, I
Okay.
guess. A lot less broad.
Okay.
All right.
But
So do you want to do a little more general ones and then do you?
maybe a couple more.
Okay. What are important influences that have really significantly impacted you as a therapist? Like people or experiences?
Yeah, well, it's one of the special things in my life. I've really had a lot of quality
Yeah.
So those are some of the bigger ones, and then being dedicated to your family, to your wife, to your kids.
Modeling it out.
Yeah, really living what you're counseling. That was always a pet peeve of mine. If I'd worked with a social worker whose life is a complete mess, and I know they're trying to tell people how to live their life.
Yeah.
And I just know them, because I know people, and it's like their lives are a mess.
Yeah.
It's like, well, maybe you should try what you're telling that person to do, And that was always a pet peeve of mine.
That's a reasonable pet peeve.
Yeah. Gotta represent, Do it right.
Actually, you talking about problem ownership went to one of my questions, which is, what do you believe is the role of morality and responsibility in today's society, and how does that come into play?
Did you come up with this question yourself?
Counseling. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good, Sam. Well, it's critical, because how we behave and how we act, if we're not driven by layers of proper morality, will only act selfishly and hurt the people around us. So of course it's a critical thing to teach, because thinking of others above yourself is so frequently comes back to that. One of the greatest things I've learned as a counselor is that God's way works. And I get to witness it day in and day out. So when people start to live their life in a healthier fashion, and it more closely resembles, the biblical precepts and moralities, the better their lives become. And then they're like, whoa, I should have been doing this a long time ago. And I get to witness that very frequently. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. How do you approach counseling a client who has different religious beliefs than you do?
Yeah, I always try to meet the person where they're at.
Okay.
And then I'm Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. So I kind of have this prayer loop going in my head all the time. Guide me, help me, give me wisdom, Lord, kind of thoughts are very consistent. Having attention deficit kind of helps that, because you think of multiple things at multiple times. And so I'm always trying to meet people where they're at. I'm looking for those opportunities where I can present, what I believe is the truth in the Gospels of Christ, and then how to present that. So I find different ways then to open up or to step into that door when it's there. So with some people I might say, listen, it's pretty obvious, you read in my business card, it says Youth for Christ is where I counsel. Let me put on my pastor's hat for a minute, or or would you mind if I give you my point of view? I'll invite myself in, but they could say, no, I'd rather not. I haven't had too many clients not come to counseling again because of the faith-based. You know, there's probably been one, two that I could think of as we're talking. Not that I keep statistics on it, but that's what comes to my mind, is maybe even one person, you know, that just couldn't receive it, because I respect them, you know, no matter where they're coming from. You know, I'm respecting them for where they're at. I mean, heck, I work with sex offenders.
Yeah.
I've had to have learned how to do that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, so it's the same thing if they bring no faith or different faith, or they're questioning their faith. You know, I know my God's bigger than that. And I just, if I stay in tune with Him, you know, He'll guide me with what I'm talking to the person that has a different belief system. So,
Yeah. Have you ever had any of your own beliefs or values challenged in any way through this?
yeah. They keep getting polished, I guess, you know. I think I've had to adjust my acceptance of homosexuality a little bit more. You know, there's almost a Christian bent to try to, it's evil, it's bad, and look at this Bible verse. But, you know, to look at one Bible verse and forget about love and acceptance, and how would Christ have handled someone of that kind of sexual preference? You know, and then again, the praying, you know, is how can I approach it, Lord, so that maybe I can get my point across, so they could live in a more moral way. So if they are going to profess a different type of sexual preference, doesn't mean they got to be immoral about it.
Right.
You know, so I get to get the opportunity to say those kinds of things. You know.
Yeah.
Or one of the lines with that, in that regards, I'll frequently say, "Aren't you more than your sexuality? You know, why do you have to define yourself by what your sexual preference is? Aren't you? As I've gotten to know you, you're much deeper than that. You know, in fact, your kindness, your thoughtfulness is much more prevalent than your sexuality.
Yeah.
You know, why define yourself by that? Let that take care of itself."
Yeah. That's beautiful to have the opportunity to meet face to face with all these perhaps socially stigmatized individuals.
Exactly.
You never know who's going to come through the door, so.
Yeah, and that's why you got to stay connected.
Yeah.
You know, to that higher source. You know, so that you're being guided with that kind of love and wisdom.
Yeah.
You know, and grace.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have enough of that.
Yeah.
Because when you're really meeting people with love and respect, they can hardly argue with you.
It's wonderful, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Who's next?
Yeah.
Those are great questions.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very impressed. You're a deep thinker, aren't you?
Okay, what was the biggest surprise during your career?
Biggest surprise.
It's in quotations. I'm not sure what he's exactly getting at, but however you define it.
Yeah. I think that so many people are victims of sexual abuse. That was huge to find that out.
Yeah.
And then to verify that with other counselors too. You know, it's like, so it's not even a surprise when you find that out that they've been sexually abused. It's almost a surprise when it isn't part of their background. So,
Wow. Yeah.
and then I think another surprise is how much God can lead if you let Him. You know, so I shared that quick story about, you know, Dr. Kaplan and him offering me the buyout. You know, there's even more to that story. So it wasn't inexpensive. It was a good deal, but it wasn't inexpensive to buy out his practice. And I'm like, where am I going to get the money for this? I'm only 3 or so years out of college. You know, so I have some debt.
Yeah.
And so I'm cooking breakfast, and the money is due like Monday. And I've got an equity loan about to come through on the home. So I'm either going to push off the payment, hopefully, or lose the deal. And I look out the window, and my friend is walking past my house. Now, I live out in the country, and no one walks past my house. But he's taking a mile and a half stroll from his cottage on Moon Lake. And I said, Jack, come in here. I want to cook you breakfast. Come in here. And he had just recently sold his company. He's about 10 or 15 years older than me. And so I laid out him the deal, and he gave me all the money I needed to buy Alfred Counts and Associates, plus an extra 10% that I didn't have to pay back.
Wow.
That's nice.
So,
Yeah.
so the surprise is that, boy, when you really put yourself out there doing things God's way, how awesome it can be.
Yeah.
And then you get to have those kinds of stories to tell about God and
Yeah.
Him intervening in my life, you know.
Yeah. Do you have any times, it's kind of like off of Sam's question, have you ever been challenged? But like, in terms of your education, have you, like, those God experiences, I guess my question is, have they challenged things that you've been educated in?
Not so much, because I went into college as an older student. So I was in my late 30s when I was in college, and had been practicing in my faith for a number of years. Not that I had arrived by any means. So wisdom to see how that's still affecting your behaviors and relationships on a day-to-day basis. So those are the biggest ones that I kind of tie into. So, and then I've also been out of school for 20 years and not taught. So Adler and Alder, and I mean all these names. Who knows? I don't even remember. Freud, I think I remember. Not as attuned to it as you don't necessarily need to hold on to it.
Right. It just comes naturally.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I learned this in this class.
Yeah.
And,
Right. Right.
Cool.
What would be like the most difficult problem for you to treat?
The most difficult is apathy. People that just don't care.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, getting them to want. I could deal with great levels of anger, great levels of sadness, high levels of fun and excitement, but that apathy is tough.
How do they get in here? If they're,
There's
unless they were sent here.
some the parents drag them in.
Okay.
Some could be. I do get some mandated clients in here, and if they just don't care, trying to give them a reason to care can be tough. But I'm pretty successful. I love what I do, and it becomes infectious. People like talking to me. That's why I got into the business. And you sense that just in meeting me here for the first time, that I just like what I do. It's just enjoyable. So it's not even like making a living. It's like, you gotta be kidding me, I get paid to do this. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, how are we doing?
We're doing well. Great. Oh, I mean, we asked you about your current style, what like schools of thought that you identify with in your practice, but I guess can you give us an overview of how things have like altered? Like, I assume year one of your career is a lot different than year two in terms of how you go about.
Yeah. Well, that's tough to define, but
Right.
clearly I've seen myself, maturing as a counselor, maybe more confidence. I think I really, the value of DBT and CBT therapy has probably influenced me the most in the last 3 to 5 years, probably.
Okay.
That seems to really hone in on,
It's been quite popular.
Yeah. on what works, So that's probably is what I've balanced the most on, and leaning on God more and more. I keep maturing into that. I think that's one of the special things about being a Christian is that part of you never stops growing. So leaning on Him more and more and more is part of that. I've developed a new way to deal with dissociative identity disorder,
Okay.
which is multiple personalities.
Yeah.
You know, in the old school of thought, you'd label each personality, and sometimes you even give it a name. And I've just stopped labeling the different personalities, but label why the personality was formed, what's the gift they give to the person, how did it help them survive,
Yeah. Function. Yeah.
and how can that gift stay, but how it's not helping them today leave.
Mm.
And
Wow.
Interesting.
So I've developed a whole different format on that, and it's been much more productive in working with people with multiple personalities.
Because yeah, I heard that naming them also often made it worse. Is what I was reading.
Encouraging.
It does. It locks it
Yeah.
in more, makes it harder to get rid of the person, that personality, because they believe it's a full-fledged person. You know, and I've had people like they went into a whole personality, and they don't even know how they got dressed. You know, one woman had so many personalities. She went out as an adult and bought gifts for all her kids, which were herself, her own the kids within her personality.
Wow.
Wow. That's wow. That would be
Yeah.
hard to live with.
Yeah, her poor husband. It's like, what's this charge bill? You know, what are all these gifts here? What'd you do? Yeah. But the ritualistic abuse that creates that is pretty awful. And so it's quite you think about the survival tactic to create a persona to live with what's going on, you know, in your life at that moment.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did have a question.
Go
I
ahead.
forgot it.
Oh.
Oh,
But
what was it like first beginning as a counselor?
it's really scary. You know, that will this work? First off, am I good enough? You know, I know people like talking to me, you know, and I got this education now, and I got all, you know, I was fortunate I had about 20 years of experience of working with people, so I had some of that confidence behind me. But will this really work? Can I make a living doing this? You know, so, and as you have more success stories, that always helps, you know, to build that confidence.
Yeah.
And then word of mouth starts to spread that, you know, you're doing a good job. So all that builds on itself. But yeah, very scary. It's still scary sometimes. You know, it takes a special mindset to run your own business. You know, not a lot of people can do it because of the worry. You know, there's so many things to keep track of. You know, where some people are better suited to just get your paycheck and then just focus on seeing your clients and doing your progress notes and you know, following the rules that the company has for you. Collect your paycheck and go home, you know.
Have you ever had an instance where you had to break a rule?
Well, I can't talk about that. Turn this thing off. Are we still recording?
Yes. Oh boy.
I break some I don't know if they'd be, what would the rule be? That personal contact rule.
Dual relationships? That kind of
Yes,
thing?
yes.
Okay.
I frequently do dual relationships, unfortunately. It's unfortunate, but in a rural community you can't get away from
Yeah.
it. So I'll counsel friends or the children of friends. I'll counsel church members, you know, fellow church members. You know, I had one instance where we actually took someone home, and because they just had no place to go and they weren't about to go to a safe house. You know, so I've broken some of those rules, and it's not necessarily recommended to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, you want to be really cautious about that. But, you know, are those really Christian counseling rules, or are they secular counseling rules?
Yeah.
and that's where
That's where you're the difference.
that's where I get to make that decision for my life, you know. Yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was funny. I would... Okay, you can turn that back on now.
But I mean, Lostoria confesses to that all
Yeah.
the time because he's on the college campus.
Yeah, how
It's
can
like,
he?
I see Lostoria myself weekly, and
Mhm.
he's my teacher, and I see him outside
Yes.
of both the classroom and the session
Mhm.
room, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it just it
I
happens.
think he kind of decides based on how comfortable the client is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you're just gonna run into people,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
You know, it's just hard not to, especially within the Christian community.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
how could you not begin to get close to someone and their wife or their husband?
Mhm.
You know, if you're in church together.
Mhm.
You know, especially if your personalities blend together,
Mhm.
where you have some similar interest.
Mhm.
You know, but it is, you try to avoid it or wait. Like if someone's deep into therapy, that dual relationships could really confuse their growth, and you know,
Yeah.
that's your first and foremost priority.
Mhm.
You know, is it going to do any harm or is it going to help
Exactly.
the person?
Yeah.
Mhm. Have you ever had instances where you completely lost on what to do in that situation?
I don't think I have really. I don't know. I mean, maybe as a probation officer,
Okay.
you know, I think the 20 years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Again, and I know that's just being how wired I try to be with God. So,
Maybe completely wasn't good.
what's that?
Maybe completely lost wasn't a good
Yeah, I've had, and
choice
I've
of
had,
words, but
I've had times where you think maybe they should go to see someone else,
Mhm.
Mm.
you know, and I'll suggest that or bring another person in, but it's, a lot of it's, I've been doing this a long time, so there isn't too much, you know, the intensity of different things could be surprising,
Mhm.
but I've kind of heard a lot of
Yeah.
stuff. You know, so yeah, I don't know. Nothing comes right to mind.
Okay.
I don't want to sound not unhumble saying
No.
that. I guess, you know. But nothing really comes to mind where it's. I guess other than when, like with the sex offenders, when someone will continue to just make poor choices, that could be baffling.
Mhm.
That you can't get them to turn the corner in their thinking.
Mhm.
And whatever you do to try to influence them, get them to think differently, they still go about hurting other people, you know, and looking for other victims.
Mhm.
You know, so I guess I can be baffled with that. You know.
Have you ever dealt with clients with religious beliefs that you believed were actually harming them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a sex offender that's a Satan worshiper.
Mhm.
So, which kind of goes against what we believe.
Yes. How do you go about?
I challenge him in any way that I can. That's within the format of the group setting. You know, what first off, in that position, my biggest goal is to lower recidivism in sex offending, so that he's getting all that information is critical, and then I'll challenge the other beliefs if I see that it would lead him towards offending, so I'll connect it to that.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thinking doesn't lend itself to thinking well of others. It keeps you thinking in a dark way. And so then I learn how to ask questions to make people think. So like with that, so then I would say, so how does thinking in a dark way affect your life? How's that really worked for you? You know, and if they could begin to see, based on the work we've done in the group, that it hasn't worked very well. It's made me angry, you know, maybe abusive, maybe critical of other people. It's affected my relationships. Then they begin to reject it themselves.
Okay.
You know, with the Satan worshiping, I was like, why would you worship the number 2 guy? I just don't get it. I always try ways like that to say it that's receivable, yet makes them think. You know, there's a truth to it.
Yeah. Have you been? I'm sure you've experienced where you would be that explicit about your faith, like saying the number two guy, like just
Mhm.
insinuating that God is number one. Have your people just had stone faced that, not respond to it?
I think this one guy has fought back on and off over the years, but he's receiving it more and more. And I've worked with him. He's been back and forth in groups for a variety of reasons, not for reoffending, but the system has kind of put him through the ringer. So he's been in and out of our groups for like 8 years.
Gotcha.
So
So you better start taking something then.
yeah. But the mutual respect that's there. He knows I respect the differences of opinion, and he respects my, wisdom to challenge it too, because he's seen how I've been for 8 years. Again, it's living what you believe too. That has a huge impact on people.
It's interesting having two complete opposite beliefs.
Yeah.
Like, in the same room.
Yeah. And pray against it. I don't want to be influenced. And then especially with the sex offenders, you hear these awful stories, and you almost need a spiritual and emotional bath by the time you're done
I bet.
sitting with them, and an hour and a half for each group.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, I don't know. Are you both in your senior years,
Yeah.
Junior.
junior year?
Senior.
So it might be too late for you, but if you get a chance to do your internship with the probation department, you could come in and sit in on the groups as part of your internship.
I'm doing an internship this summer in Wellsville, but I'm actually in college for 2 more years after this year,
Well,
so I might be able to have another chance
yeah,
to try something else too.
you consider it and just, you call there and tell them I recommended you, and we'll get you in. It's really you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's really a phenomenal type of counseling that's different than anything else you'll do, because there are levels of manipulation. Well, imagine they're offending children,
Yeah.
but can justify it in their mind that it's okay. I mean, what kind of
That's
circus do you got to put your mind through to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So do you do group counseling as well?
I do group counseling for that.
Okay.
I've done some group counseling with like mentoring at Lima Christian School. I did that for about 8 years. I'd go up there every other week, and just have lunch with them and talk about mentoring topics. I didn't do that. I haven't done that this year. I'm trying to remember if I did it last year. I did it for half a year last year. So I've done that pretty consistently though since 2002 probably. So maybe it's 12 years I've been doing it. No, that's 14 years.
Yeah.
Now you know I'm not an engineer. Yeah. So I'll speak at youth groups. I'll do a men's group. I'm scheduled April 8th for a men's group. When my daughter was at Houghton, I met with all her guy friends once a month and just talked about life and being a man and how to carry your faith into your work and all that. So that was pretty cool to do that. So yeah. So I do groups.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at he's thinking over there.
No, I can just see how much you enjoy
Yeah.
everything that you've been involved with.
Yeah. It is. It's a passion of mine,
Cool. That was a good.
Yeah.
Yeah. My brain's feeling it.
Okay. Did we get
We've gone deep.
every question?
No. Well.
We only have a few more minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. We only have like 2 or 3 more.
Okay.
Let me pick the best ones.
I was making up questions too on the
Yeah.
spot. So.
No, that's
We've tackled
that's
a few.
Yeah, that's a better interview that way, and that
Yeah.
it shows you've given it some thought prior to coming in here, and not just winging it,
Yeah.
So good for you.
Let's do 2 more. The first one will be about how you feel about diagnoses, and the second one will be like giving advice for someone who's an early
Beginner.
beginner.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about psychological testing? You mentioned dissociative identity disorder. Why and why not do it? And, like, what's the role of diagnosis?
Well, having any inventories and any diagnostic tools can be really good, especially if you're beginning, because it really allows you to ask questions and know which questions to ask, and it can really help you build a relationship and hone in on what the needs are of the client. It could help you get there quicker. So for that, it's a very good benefit. The diagnostic tools, I only like giving a diagnosis if it helps you decide what the coping skills should be. If it could help polish the treatment modality, then you're in good shape. Other than that, it's just a way to get your billing. Because whether you're, depressed or anxious, or learning disability, whatever it might be, it's the coping skills to live day to day. That's not going to change based on the label necessarily. Another time that it's important, though, there's some people that like to know what's wrong with them.
Yeah.
And so they appreciate the label.
Wow.
Well, sometimes I feel like it could help too, as you have something to tell somebody.
Yeah, it gives it something to hold on to almost,
Yeah.
as long as they don't use it as a crutch,
Yeah.
But then, like, one of the coping skills, like if someone has tics, well, they just get to say, well, I've got a little bit of something on the autism spectrum, so pardon me if my eye is winking all the time, but I'm not trying to flirt with you. I'm just trying to, it's just the way my body reacts.
It's better to communicate it when you have a label.
And it just shows a comfort of that they're comfortable with themselves and how they're wired. So very, very important part of it. So there, the diagnosis can be very important to help them just talk about things. But the part I don't like is that it's driven by the insurance industry, the HMOs.
Yeah.
So.
That's unfortunate.
Yep.
So what advice would you give to Sam and I?
Take every chance you can to work with people. So the summer's in front of you, do every internship opportunity or work at a camp or, if you want to work with people, then you better be working with people. And that'll see whether you can or not. And it'll also help you see where your skill base lies. Not everyone could work with teenagers and kids like I do. For some reason that works for me. You might like all adults. Maybe you like little kids. Maybe you like, a different specific of person. Someone that's developmentally disabled or handicapped or post-traumatic or vets or post-traumatic stress stuff. But work with people. Use every opportunity. Finish school and get your master's degree or doctorates. Don't stop. If you hesitate, it's tough to go back. So if you're thinking of making this a career, you got to have the degree and the license.
Yeah.
So go after it while you're young and still in education mode.
Yeah.
Getting geared up, in my mid-30s was pretty tough.
I bet. Yeah.
And I didn't need to, right? I had good jobs from the time I graduated. I was enjoying what I was doing, so I couldn't justify going back to school, but I so wish I had. It wouldn't have been quite as easy or quite as difficult. It would have been easier. So that's the biggest advice I have. And really staying in touch with Christ and your relationship with Him is really critical. That stuff is real. And no matter what the world is telling you on what's fun to do, doing it God's way works, and just living that day to day is huge. And so anything that interferes with that, try to put it aside,
Yeah. May as well start living authentically right now.
It's highly recommended. All right, guys, good stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, would you mind if I prayed with you?
No.
That'd be all right?
That'd be awesome.
All right.
We can turn this off.
Oh, I don't know if the prayer could be in there too.